Okay, so here's what happened. I arrived at the Mechagon. I know I said I wanted to see my people, but I heard actually there were hotties at a club somewhere and I wanted to check it out. Anyway, I got there and people noticed me quick.
Hey, that sounds like the Halo music.
Don't ruin my moment.
Oh my god, Rick, look! It's here, as the prophecies foretold.
It's the god of metal, Jennifer, the son of the Titans.
No, it's the daughter of Titans. Can't you see how girlish she looks?
Hey, whatever, man. I'm gonna go in and get a piece of that.
Ugh, gnome driller. You don't just go and ask the gnome of prophecy out on a date.
I ain't asking. He's gonna put a baby in me.
No way, she's going to bear my child.
And then the rest happened with the questions and the song.
No, don't even start with that song.
Why not?
Just don't. Hey, it's Soul. It's May 3rd, 2019. This is Warcraft Weekly, and today I'm kind of stressing out because tomorrow BlizzCon tickets go on sale.
Saturday.
That,
Saturday just doesn't work.
yeah. Okay, maybe I'm not stressed. I'm just really excited to go. I'm already hyped up because this will be my 10th BlizzCon.
What would you do if you didn't waste your money on 10 BlizzCons?
I'd probably waste my money on different cons.
That's the spirit.
Anyway, let's get to the news. Just earlier, the world first race ended with Pieces snatching the top spots, giving them both of the world first kills of the Restless Cabal and Unat. So a big congratulations to them, it is well deserved. But there's a lot to take away from this too. One is that in retrospect, this boss or this raid was hard as heck, and there isn't really much of an out here for Blizzard when it comes to tuning a raid responsibly. Item level isn't a thing that these teams could squeeze out, and according to Pieces' roster, the only drop in this raid that might have played a factor was the Voidstone. This is slightly reminiscent to the days of Resistance gear when certain roles needed a certain amount of it in order to avoid hopelessly dying. Resistance gear was a form of gear checking the raid, not unlike DPS checks. You went out, you farmed the gear as much as you could. It was like old school time gating, if you want to think of it that way.
No, it's not time gating. Resistance gear and defense rating made the game good.
Yeah, but it was still like a subtle form of like prolonging subscriptions.
My ears, make it stop.
Another takeaway, the raid comp. I already talked about fights that favor ranged, but that's probably a conversation that's going to continue forever. If it's not ranged, it's melee. If it doesn't matter, then the fight isn't very engaging, yada yada yada. What I want to highlight though is this guy or girl, the Demon Hunter with the super competitive but guaranteed raid spots because he or she provides a magic debuff. Raid buffs and debuffs in BFA are tied to specific classes and encourage a variety of comps. Now, class stacking or the ranged/melee stacking can be a problem, but the way I see it, that's a problem for the bleeding edge teams racing to be the best because, well, next week everyone will be getting new gear and the stacking is going to matter less. But I really think this should not be a problem when you're simply trying to complete the encounter, which is happening here because the gearing is pretty much done. As the fight is right now, this right here is the basic blueprint to victory. And the last takeaway are a couple of questions that I have here on screen. How should Blizzard handle future seasons when multiple raids are released? Should raid buffs and debuffs be revisited? And is there something to the idea of needing certain gear within a raid to complete said raid? And by this I mean like resistance gear, specific procs, or tier-like bonuses. Moving on, late last week, Blizzard banned and then unbanned a lot of players for breaking the terms of service. The ban was for using a program that allowed players to modify in-game assets, which can affect the game in one of several ways. I'll talk about two. One is an obvious exploit, as in changing the size of the flag in Warsong Gulch, and then you can easily find the carrier. That obviously affects gameplay for all players. The other is to just modify the look of models so they look the way that we want them to. Whether it's changing them into custom clothes, or hey, I want a pickup truck mount, or I want to be naked, or have a giant head.
Hey.
I'm just taking a guess here by saying that the number of exploiters is far outnumbered by the number of people who use this program for just roleplay reasons. Hence why Blizzard reversed the bans and issued warnings instead. I'm curious to hear what you folks at home and on the toilet think about it, but well, at least from me, it's pretty black and white. Like if they say it's wrong, then it's wrong. Even if we go into the conversation of how editing models doesn't affect anyone but the user, then I would argue that it does. Editing models is, in a way, rewriting the Blizzard IP, and Blizzard is obligated to protect it. I mean, Warcraft looks a certain way, they just want to make sure it stays that way. This is WoW, not Second Life or Roblox. Not yet. Moving right along, Activision Blizzard had their quarterly earnings call and they cited a loss of 3 million monthly active users across its franchises since last quarter. I'm not going to pretend that I can explain what these losses mean with any accuracy or authority, so instead I'm just going to cite a couple of things, and from there, well, you can write whatever story you want. Last quarter's earnings call was on February 12th. Season 2 of BFA and the Battle of Nazjatar lore began January 22nd. The next season isn't expected to begin until sometime late June or July, meaning patch 8.2 will probably be out in June. Just don't take my word for it, okay? Hearthstone launched their Rise of Shadows expansion on April 9th. Overwatch has had a new character and a map since last quarter. StarCraft 2 and Diablo 3 are chugging along with minimal updates. Heroes of the Storm is still a thing, and recently announced Anduin Wrynn as an upcoming hero. A very good-looking hero, by the way. WoW team, I suggest you just take that model and just use this instead, okay? And this month marks 3 years since Blizzard released their last game that wasn't a remix or an expansion. I'm talking about Overwatch. Speaking only for Warcraft, as for what's coming down the pipe this year, there's Warcraft 3 Reforged, Classic WoW, 1, maybe 1.5 content patches for BFA, and a WoW expansion announcement. We can take these bullet points and write all sorts of stories about what's going on at Blizzard. The way I see it, sometimes you just get months. And I'm more concerned that my team and I only got UNAT down to like 15% last night in what I'm going to say is probably the first night of meaningful progression.
You had 3.
Yeah, I guess I'm just saying that the monthly the MAUs and all that stuff is not a metric of whether I'm having fun or not. Like once upon a time there were over 10 million WoW subscribers, but at the time I had a much harder time trying to maintain my raid team compared to now.
Then wait till Classic WoW launches and their MAU triples. Let's see you not pretend you can explain that.
I would like to hear from those of you who take these investor reports seriously, because I do want to know what it is about them that affect you. I'm not trying to set this up as a way to talk you down, I really just want to try to understand better. Moving on, after the Activision Blizzard layoffs in February, a number of segments were visibly affected that mostly had to do with customer service and social media interaction. This week there was a little bit more to add to that pile, with Blizzard announcing that they will not have a large presence over at Gamescom, the largest gaming expo in the world. And there's no sugarcoating this one, it just sucks that Blizzard is letting go of their presence at such a big venue. Now, I get it that BlizzCon is only a few months after Gamescom. I admit that a couple years back, it was a little bit weird to get an announcement for Legion, followed by, hey, we're gonna have more for you at our second announcement at BlizzCon. I mean, imagine if Blizzard did stay and then they did the same thing this year.
Now's not the time for idle talk. We must save our friends and bring honor back to the Horde. Well, champion, I wasn't going to the Spring Festival, but if you happen to ask me, I think I'd go. I'm not asking you to take me with you. World of Warcraft, dating in Azeroth. Learn more at BlizzCon. See you there.
Focusing the hype in just one event is a pretty strong argument as to, to justify why this shouldn't be a big deal, but it is a big deal, on the European side at least. I know that if the roles were switched, like if Gamescom was here in the US and Blizzard was based out of Germany or wherever Gamescom is, and if they weren't coming out to the US, then I'd be pretty pissed. At the same time, I think that some of the reactions are overblown, and I'm talking about the really extreme ones. It's 2019, guys. We have high-speed internet and a very content-hungry press. Like, if we want to know something, it's just a couple clicks away. You don't need to set up a big fancy stage and hype up, oh, here's the announcement, and here's our making a personal appearance, and otherwise blow a lot of money when you can just put out a blog post instead.
Yeah, says the guy trying to go to BlizzCon.
Well, I mean, you don't have to do it twice. Projecting presence and perception is important, and right now it's debatable as to whether Blizzard is delivering on that. Two things are for sure, though. All eyes are going to be on BlizzCon at this point. And I have no doubt, zero doubts, that they're going to be announcing mobile projects as well as updating us on Diablo Immortal at BlizzCon, if not sooner. I think the lesson Blizzard should have learned by November is that if you're going to announce something on mobile, make sure that it's not the only thing that you announce for that franchise. Just don't pull a Blizzard. Lastly, a quick look at this week's build. We finally got a chance to enter Nazjatar, the second zone coming in patch 8.2. So far, I'm digging the varied environments in this really tall zone. It's cool because check it. At the zone's highest point, aka the surface, it's like a ruined Night Elf city. Go deeper and you see what would be aquatic looking environments, just, without the water. Go deeper still, and you'll get a better idea of updated Naga architecture, which also tells me that Ashara is a jerk, and she saved the real construction for her eternal palace. Sheesh. I'm going to have more early impressions of Nazjatar in an upcoming video, so stay tuned for that. There are also some new weapon models previewed in this build. To me at least, the look of them is something that I'm actually fond of. I find the super flash weapons with the glowing eyes, the animations, and the 3 heads, it's a little bit played out these days, and I just like having a solid looking, high-res looking weapon to swing around. But I'm not as fond of the fact that the weapon models for the gladiator weapons are just recolors of what you'll find in the upcoming raid. I prefer a little bit more uniqueness, So that's the show, folks, and I want to thank all of you for being awesome, making it to the end, and supporting the channel. Of course, I would not be me if I didn't also ask you to consider supporting me as a patron.
$1 is all it takes, because he's a cheap skank.
Skank. But seriously, there is no obligation to pledge for patron-exclusive content that I don't actually have, but you will be helping me continue to bring you more of this. And Bob.
I only take my denominations in 5, thank you very much.
Right, and all things Warcraft. We'll see you next week for PTR coverage, as well as speculating the end of the faction war. That is, the Horde versus the Horde. That should be fun. Until then, though, stay safe, stay happy, and stay breezy.